what do you mean by hashing? Okay, so before we understand this hashing, now first we try to understand what do you mean by hash table. So hash table is a data structure used for storing and retrieving the data very quickly. So here storing is nothing but inserting the data into the hash table. Retrieving is nothing but deleting the data from the hash table. Both inserting the data and deleting the data from the hash table, you can do it very quickly, very fastly. So that is hash table. So insertion of data into the hash table is based on a key value nano. So how we can insert the data into the hash table? Hash table is nothing but, so for your easy understanding, I am telling you it is nothing but a array nano. Okay, so we can insert the data into the hash table based on a particular value called key value. So based on the key value only, we can insert the data or retrieve the data, or you can search the data in the table. Table is nothing but, for your easy understanding, take it as a array. Now, so therefore every whatever the value you would like to store or retrieve, everything is associated with some key value. Based on the key value only, we can store the data into the hash table or retrieve the data from the hash table. So see this example. For storing an employee record into the hash table, the employee ID will act as a key. So when you would like to maintain some employee records, okay, so for example, employee ID, employee name, employee age, employee address, employee email, okay, mobile number. So that information you would like to maintain. So based on which value we have to store the information into the hash table means based on employee ID, unique value. What is the unique value? For every employee has unique number. Okay, there may be same name, there may be same address, there may be same email ID. Okay, so in some cases. Okay, so here based on employee ID, you can store the data into the hash tables. Here, for example, employee ID is 1000, then employee record means it may be name X may be here, name or address or anything. You can store anything. So based on this employee ID, we are storing the relevant information of one particular employee. See here, now the next row, 1001, it is another employee ID. So you can store another employee information. 1002, third employee details you can store. Like that, everything need to be stored with the help of a value. That value is called key nano. So here, every entry, whether you would like to, for example, I would like to know the information about employee ID bearing 1001. See here, what is the 1001 employee ID? This one. So what is the information? Y. Y is the information. Y can be employee name or employee, okay, mobile number, employee email ID, employee address, okay, employee salary, anything. So you can get the information, at the same time you can store the information into the hash table based on one particular value called key value. So that value is called key value now. Understood? What do you mean by hash table? Is it clear now? Hash table is nothing but one kind of data structure where you can store the data and retrieve the data very quickly. That point you need to understand. Is it clear, Nana? Any doubts? Anyone has any doubts? Please let me know now. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, what do you mean by hashing? So these are basic things, Nana. We are okay before. Okay, we are going in detail about these hashing techniques. Okay, first we try to understand what do you mean by hash table. What do you mean by hashing? Implementation of hash tables is called hashing now. How do you implement this hash table? See here, first before I started hashing, I told about hash table. Hash table is nothing but it contains rows and columns. Okay, based on one particular value, we can insert the data and retrieve the data. We can store the data and retrieve the data or search the data very quickly. Hashing means implementation of hash table is called hashing none. So hashing in another way, okay, we can define hashing as hashing is a technique used for performing insertion means storing, deletion means retrieving, and search in a constant average time. So you can define hashing in two ways. The implementation of hash table is called hashing. Other way is hashing is a technique used to store the data, retrieve the data, and search the data in a constant average time. That means within a fixed amount of time you can do all these three operations now. So how we can implement the hashing. So the hash tables uses hash function for its implementation. To implement hashing, the hash table uses hash function for its implementation. First, you try to understand what do you mean by hash table. It is a data structure where you can store and retrieve the data fastly. Hashing means implementation of that hash table is called hashing. So how we can implement it? The hash table uses one particular function called hash function. By using that hash function, we can implement the hash tables. That implementation is called hashing. Understood, Nana? What do you mean by hash table and hashing? Did you find the difference between a hash table and hashing?
Yes, sir.
Hash table and hashing, Nana. Okay, hashing is implementation of the table is called hashing. Okay, how do you implement it? By using a particular function called hash function. So here now we see what do you mean by hash function. Next thing is hash function. What do you mean by hash function? So it is like, okay, mathematical function. It is a function